I walked into the living room one night and saw my husband sitting too close to my daughter, their hands brushing in a way no father and grown daughter's hands should. His voice was low, his eyes locked on hers, and she was smiling like a woman in love. In that moment, my whole world collapsed, because I realized the man I had shared my bed with for decades wasn't mine anymore. He was hers. I tried to tell myself I was imagining it, that maybe it was innocent, but the late-night whispers behind closed doors, the sudden silences when I entered the room, and the way she dressed differently when he was home told me I wasn't crazy. My husband began to ignore me, to dismiss me, as if my presence in my own house was a nuisance. My daughter, my flesh and blood, treated me not like her mother but as competition. The breaking point came when I opened the bedroom door and found them together. My daughter didn't even flinch. She looked me in the eyes with defiance, while my husband had the audacity to say I shouldn't have barged in. That night, I walked out of my home with nothing but my dignity shattered into 1,000 pieces. Divorce papers followed, and suddenly, I wasn't just losing my husband. I was losing my daughter, too, because she chose him. In the courtroom, I stood alone while they sat side by side, holding hands like lovers, painting me as bitter and unstable. The judge's eyes carried no sympathy. The neighbors whispered about me like I was the villain, and the media devoured my humiliation like vultures circling a dying body. My daughter wouldn't even meet my gaze. Her loyalty belonged entirely to him. But karma has a way of finding those who betray. Years later, police came knocking. Fraud, stolen money, debts piling up. And the daughter who once betrayed me now turned against him to save herself. I watched her crumble, tears streaming as regret finally caught up with her. It didn't heal me, but it showed me one truth. Betrayal punishes itself. I survived their love, their lies, their destruction of my family. They thought they buried me. But here I am, still breathing, still telling my story, so that others know survival is possible, even after the deepest cut. I sat on the cold floor of my lawyer's office after the first hearing, my hands trembling as I stared at the divorce petition. The ink on the paper blurred because of my tears, but the words were clear enough. Irreconcilable differences, custody of property contested, spousal support denied. They had stripped me bare not just in marriage but in the law too. And when I looked across the courtroom at him and my daughter sitting together, her hand resting comfortably on his thigh, I thought to myself, what kind of world am I living in? Nights turned into endless questioning. I replayed every moment in my head. Our wedding day when he promised me eternity. The day my daughter was born, when I thought he held her with fatherly pride. The birthdays we celebrated as a family. Were all those moments lies? Or had he changed only later, corrupted by desire that no one dares to name? The trial dragged on. They accused me of jealousy, said I was bitter because I was aging while she was young and full of life. My own child called me a liar in front of the judge. She said I was inventing stories because I couldn't accept that her stepfather loved her. Her stepfather, that word twisted in my ears like poison. She wasn't even ashamed. She defended their relationship with the passion of a woman protecting her lover. People avoided me. Friends who once drank tea in my home stopped calling. Relatives whispered that I had lost my mind. Everywhere I went, I felt eyes on me. Not with sympathy, but with mockery. The betrayal became heavier because it wasn't just private anymore. It was public. My humiliation had become entertainment. I lived in a small apartment after the divorce, alone. the silence pressing against my chest like a weight. I tried to find meaning in work, in routine, in the smallest things. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw them, laughing, building a life together on the ruins of mine. And the question haunted me. Did she ever love me as her mother? Or was she always waiting for her chance to replace me? Years passed, and I hardened. Pain turns into armor if you wear it long enough. I stopped crying, stopped begging the universe for answers. Then one morning I heard the knock. It was the police. They wanted me to testify. Fraud, embezzlement, money laundering, all tied to him. My ex-husband, the man who ruined me, had built his empire on lies, and now it was collapsing. I went to court again, but this time as a witness, and there she was, my daughter, not sitting beside him but across from him. Her eyes were red, her body trembling. For the first time I saw shame in her face. She couldn't even look at me. She was testifying against him, giving details of accounts, secrets, lies. She was protecting herself, of course, but I could see the cracks in her pride. She had loved him, but now she feared him more. When the sentence came, he was led away in handcuffs, and my daughter, the one who had broken me, collapsed in the hallway outside the courtroom, sobbing like a child. People passed her by, whispering. Some pitied her, others judged her. I stood a few feet away, my hands shaking. She lifted her eyes to mine, eyes swollen, wet, desperate. And for a moment, we just stared at each other. There were no words, only the silence of everything we had lost. I didn't comfort her. I didn't move. Betrayal leaves scars too deep to erase with tears. She chose him once. She destroyed me once. And though fate punished her, it wasn't my duty to heal her. I turned and walked away. Still at night, I sometimes wonder, was I too cruel? Was she too young, too foolish, blinded by his manipulation? Or was she old enough to know exactly what she was doing? These questions never leave me, and maybe they never will. But here's what I know. I survived. They wanted to erase me, to bury me under their so-called love. But I rose, and even though the scars remain, they are proof that I lived through the worst storm imaginable. After that day in the courthouse hallway, I thought I'd never see her again. I walked away without looking back, but the image of her, crumpled on the floor, sobbing like a broken child, burned itself into my memory. Months passed. I rebuilt my life in silence. I took extra shifts at work, paid my rent on time, and learned to live with the emptiness in my apartment. No laughter, no voices, no footsteps. Just me and the ticking clock on the wall. But betrayal has a way of finding its way back to you. One evening I heard another knock at the door. I almost didn't answer, thinking it was some neighbor or a delivery meant for the wrong floor. But when I opened it, she was standing there, my daughter. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow. She looked thinner, weaker, as if life had drained her of all the fire she once had. She didn't step inside, just stood in the hallway, clutching her hands together. "Mom," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I have nowhere else to go." I froze. The anger I had carried for years clashed with the ache of seeing her like that. My first instinct was to slam the door, but my hands wouldn't move. I stared at her, remembering every wound she had given me, every word she had used to stab me in the courtroom, every night I had cried because of her betrayal. "Why are you here?" I finally asked. My voice was colder than I expected. She looked down, shame flooding her face. "He ruined me too," she said. "Everything he promised. It was all a lie. He took my money, used my name, left me with debts I can't pay. And now, everyone hates me. I'm alone. The silence between us stretched. I could hear the neighbor's television through the walls, muffled laughter from another apartment. Life carrying on as usual. But at my door, time stood still. I warned you, I said quietly. I begged you, and you chose him. Her lips quivered. I know, and I can never take it back? Tears welled in her eyes, but this time, they didn't look like the manipulative tears she once used in court. These were different. Heavy, desperate, raw. She looked like a child again, stripped of all pride, all arrogance. I wanted to push her away. I wanted to remind her of the nights I starved, because the court took everything from me. Of the shame I carried when people pointed fingers, laughing at the mother whose daughter stole her husband. But then, something inside me shifted. She was still my daughter, my blood, my only child. No matter how deep the wound, that bond couldn't be erased. Without saying a word, I stepped aside. She looked at me in shock, her eyes widening as if she didn't expect mercy. Slowly, she walked inside, dragging her suitcase behind her. The apartment suddenly felt different. For years it had been just mine, quiet, empty. Now her presence filled it with a strange tension. Not warmth, not comfort. Just an uneasy reminder of everything broken between us. We didn't hug. We didn't say I love you. We didn't forgive. But she slept under my roof that night. And as I lay awake, listening to her breathing in the next room, I wondered if this was the start of healing, or just another chapter of pain waiting to unfold. The first week was silent. We barely spoke. She woke up before me, left coffee on the counter without a word, then disappeared for hours, wandering the city as if searching for something that didn't exist. At night she came home, ate quietly, and locked herself in the spare room. It was strange having her back under my roof. Every time I saw her, memories collided. Her teenage laughter in this very kitchen, the way she once clung to me after nightmares, and the betrayal that had shattered all of it. I couldn't look at her without seeing both the child I raised and the woman who destroyed me. But slowly, little cracks began to show. One night I found her crying on the balcony, shoulders shaking. She didn't hear me come in. She was whispering his name, my ex-husband's name, over and over, like a curse and a prayer all at once. My heart twisted, but I didn't step closer. I just listened from the shadows until she fell silent. A few days later, the past came knocking, literally. I opened the door to find him standing there. My ex-husband, older, thinner, his once proud face sagging with bitterness. He smelled of whiskey, his clothes wrinkled. "Where is she?" he demanded, his voice rough. I didn't answer. My hands clenched the door frame, fury rising. The sight of him was enough to ignite every scar he'd left on my life. "She's not yours anymore," I said, my voice low but sharp. He laughed, a cruel, broken sound. "Not mine. She'll always come back to me. You know it. She can't live without me." Before I could respond, she appeared behind me. My daughter froze when she saw him. Her face went pale, fear flooding her eyes. For a moment, I thought she might run to him. Old habits die hard. But instead, she stepped closer to me, almost hiding behind me like she had when she was little. "Leave us alone," she whispered, her voice trembling. His eyes narrowed. "You think she'll protect you? After what you did to her? She'll never forgive you. She's just waiting for you to crawl back, and you will." I slammed the door in his face before he could say more. His fist pounded against it, the sound echoing through the apartment. But eventually the knocking stopped, replaced by silence. That night, my daughter finally spoke. Really spoke. "I thought he loved me," she said, sitting at the kitchen table with her hands wrapped around a mug of untouched tea. "But he only wanted to break you. I see it now. I was stupid. So stupid." Her voice cracked, and for the first time in years I reached out. My hand brushed hers, hesitant, unsure. She didn't pull away. "You destroyed me," I said. My voice wasn't angry. It was just honest. "But maybe this doesn't have to be the end of us." Her tears fell silently, dripping into her tea. And for the first time, she didn't try to justify herself, didn't try to argue, didn't try to play the victim. She just cried, like a daughter mourning the mother she'd almost lost forever. I didn't forgive her that night, but I didn't hate her either, and somewhere in between those two extremes, a fragile thread began to weave itself again. Still, I couldn't shake the fear. People like him don't disappear quietly. He would be back, and next time he wouldn't just knock. 2 nights later, the pounding came again. Not just a knock this time. It was violent, relentless, shaking the door in its frame. I jolted awake, heart racing as my daughter ran into my room, eyes wide with terror. "It's him," she whispered. Her voice was so small I almost didn't hear it. I grabbed my phone but froze. Part of me wanted to call the police immediately, but another part, the part that had lived years in fear of this man, hesitated. Would they even come? Would they even care? The banging grew louder, followed by his slurred shouting. "Open the damn door! She's mine!" I stood. My legs trembled, but I forced myself forward. My daughter clutched my arm, pleading. "Don't open it, please." I didn't. Instead, I shouted through the door. "Leave us alone or I'll call the police." His laughter cut through me, cruel and mocking. "You think the police will save you? They never did before. You're nothing without me. Both of you are nothing." I dialed anyway, my fingers fumbling. The operator's calm voice steadied me just enough to explain, to give the address. Minutes felt like hours as the banging and shouting continued. My daughter sobbed into my shoulder, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I held her tight, shielding her. Then, silence. Too sudden, too heavy. I didn't trust it. My breath hitched, and then glass shattered from the side window. He was inside. We ran. I grabbed my daughter's hand and pulled her toward the back, my mind racing. The sound of his footsteps was behind us, closer, closer. His voice filled the house like poison. "You can't hide from me." We locked ourselves in the bathroom. My daughter pressed herself against me, shaking. I pressed my weight against the door, praying it would hold. The handle rattled violently. "Let me in!" he roared. And then, sirens. Faint at first, then louder. Red and blue lights flashing through the small bathroom window. The pounding stopped. His footsteps retreated. For a moment I thought he'd gotten away again. But then came the shouts of officers, the sound of a struggle, and finally, silence again, this time safe. When the police knocked on the bathroom door, I opened it to see 2 officers dragging him out in handcuffs. His eyes locked on mine, wild and full of rage. "This isn't over," he spat. But it was. For me. For my daughter. It had to be. That night, when the chaos faded and the house was finally quiet, my daughter curled up beside me on the couch. She was still trembling, still crying, but her words broke something open in me. "I don't deserve your forgiveness," she whispered, "but thank you for not leaving me." I stroked her hair gently, like I hadn't done in years. "We've both been broken," I said softly, "but maybe we can heal together." The road ahead would be long, painful, and uncertain, but for the first time in years, I believed we might actually survive it. Years later, when my daughter was fully grown, with a career and a small apartment of her own, we finally sat down together in the quiet of a cafe. She stirred her coffee slowly, her eyes distant as though she was building the courage to speak. "Mom," she said, her voice low, "do you ever think about him?" For a moment I couldn't breathe. I thought the years had buried his name between us, that maybe silence was safer. But here she was, pulling it back into the light. "Yes," I admitted, "but I don't let him own my thoughts anymore." She nodded, biting her lip. "Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever be normal, if I'll ever be able to love without feeling dirty, without looking over my shoulder." I reached across the table and held her hand. "You are normal. What happened to us doesn't define who you are. It's just something we lived through, and you don't owe him anything. Not your thoughts, not your fear, not your future." Her eyes welled up, and for the first time in years, she didn't pull away when I squeezed her hand. She let me hold it, firm and steady, as though finally believing I wasn't going anywhere. That night I realized the war wasn't against him anymore. It never really had been. The war was against the silence, the shame, the invisible scars he left behind. And winning meant not letting him poison the bond between me and my daughter. We went home together, and for the first time in a long time, she stayed the night. We cooked dinner, laughed at old memories, and when she fell asleep on the couch, I covered her with a blanket like I used to when she was little. The house wasn't haunted anymore. The silence wasn't heavy. It was peaceful. Yes, we carried scars. Yes, there were nights the past tried to claw its way back. But we had survived him. And survival, in its own way, is the greatest revenge. Because he had wanted to destroy us. And here we were. Still standing, still living, still loving. That was the ending. Not his name, not his power, not his shadow. Just us, mother and daughter, unbroken.